If you believe God still performs miracles, listen carefully to this story, because not every miracle arrives with a voice from heaven or a flash of light. Some arrive quietly, in the coldest hours of the night, when faith is hardest to hold. On a winter evening, a mother was chased away, misunderstood, and left to suffer. The world saw only a problem, but God saw a heart that would not abandon its children. This is a story about mercy when judgment feels easier, about love that endures pain without asking why, and about the moments God places before ordinary people, asking not for perfection, but for compassion. If you believe God still works through small acts of kindness, this story may remind you that miracles are still among us. Winter arrived without apology. Snow pressed down on the small Colorado town like a heavy breath, muting sound, swallowing color, and turning every street into a corridor of cold and silence. The golden retriever mother ran. Her paws struck the frozen pavement in uneven rhythm, one step dragging slightly behind the others. She was 3 years old, though her body looked older, thinner than it should have been, ribs faintly visible beneath tangled, pale gold fur, darkened by grime and melted snow. Her coat, once soft and bright, hung in wet clumps against her sides. Blood traced a thin, dark line from her right hind leg, disappearing into the slush with every step. She did not bark. She did not growl. She ran with her head low, ears pinned flat against her skull, amber brown eyes wide with fear and a single purpose that burned louder than pain. Behind her, voices rose. "Hey, get back here!" A man's shout cut through the night, sharp and angry. Footsteps followed, heavy boots crunching snow, breath steaming in the air. Someone else laughed, a short, bitter sound, the kind that came easy to people who had already decided what they were looking at. A thief, a nuisance, a problem. The woman who swung first was named Sarah Whitman. She was in her early 40s, tall and narrow-shouldered, with a face sharpened by years of working late shifts at the town diner. Her brown hair was pulled into a careless ponytail beneath a knit hat, strands already stiff with frost. Her skin was pale, her cheeks permanently flushed from cold and habit. People said Sarah had once been kind, years ago, before her husband left, and the bills began stacking faster than hope. Now she moved through the world with her jaw clenched and her patience worn thin. She gripped a wooden broom handle in both hands. "I saw her near my trash again," Sarah said, voice tight. "Same dog, always lurking." The broom came down, striking snow where the dog had been a moment before. The golden veered sharply, slipping, barely catching herself before falling. Pain flared white-hot through her injured leg. Still, she ran. She cut between 2 houses, past a frozen hedge and a mailbox bent by years of neglect. Her breath came in harsh pulls, chest heaving, lungs burning with air so cold it felt sharp. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, to hide, to curl into something small and invisible. But stopping meant turning back, and turning back meant losing them. She reached the edge of the street where the old drainage system ran beneath the town, a forgotten artery built decades ago, rusted grates half buried under snow. The storm earlier that week had loosened one of the covers. Beneath it, darkness yawned, damp and narrow, carrying the faint scent of water and oil. The golden slowed. Her body trembled violently now, not just from cold, but from the strain of holding herself together. She looked back once. Lights bobbed in the distance. Flashlights, shapes moving closer. Human shapes. Her ears twitched as another shout echoed, closer this time. The broom handle scraped against concrete. Someone cursed. She turned and lowered herself painfully, forcing her injured body to crouch beside the opening. With shaking paws, she nudged the loose metal grate just enough to widen the gap. A sound rose from below, soft, fragile, a thin chorus of whimpers barely strong enough to cut through the wind. 5 puppies lay hidden in the narrow space beneath the street, pressed together for warmth. They were no more than 2 weeks old, eyes barely open, bodies impossibly small, fur still darkened with the dampness of the underground. Their bellies rose and fell unevenly as they cried, unaware of anything beyond hunger and cold. The mother slipped her head into the opening, licking each one quickly, desperately. Her tongue trembled. Her breathing stuttered. She wanted to stay. Every part of her wanted to curl around them, to cover them with her body, to become a wall between them and the world. But the footsteps were too close now. She lifted her head as light swept across the snow. The beam caught her eyes, freezing her in place for half a second too long. "There!" someone shouted. The broom swung again. This time it struck her side. She yelped, a sound torn straight from her chest, and stumbled backward, nearly collapsing. The puppies cried louder beneath the street, their small bodies reacting to her distress. The sound reached Sarah. For a moment, her arm hesitated. "What was that?" she said. The golden mother met her gaze. There was no aggression in her posture, no bared teeth, no challenge, only terror, and something else raw, aching urgency that made no sense if all this dog wanted was food. The moment passed. "Just rats," a man behind Sarah said. "Or pipes." The broom came down again. The golden mother turned and ran. She disappeared into the snowfall, her limping form swallowed by white and shadow between the houses. Her paw prints filled quickly, erased by falling snow, as if she had never been there at all. The voices faded. The lights moved on. Under the street, the puppies cried until their voices cracked, then slowly weakened. One by one, they pressed closer together. Tiny bodies sharing what little warmth they had left. Above them, the storm thickened. Somewhere beyond the houses, beyond the edge of town, the golden retriever mother staggered through the woods, blood soaking into her fur, lungs burning, vision narrowing. She did not stop running until her body gave out beneath a pine, heavy with snow. When she fell, the night closed in around her, and no one saw whether she rose again. Jack Miller noticed the cold before he noticed anything else. It was the kind of cold that slipped beneath layers of clothing and settled into bone, the kind that made each breath feel deliberate. Dawn had not fully arrived yet. The sky over the small Colorado town was a dull gray, heavy with low clouds, and the snow from the night before lay undisturbed except for a few tire tracks and footprints along the street. Jack parked his plumbing van beside the curb and stepped out slowly, stretching his stiff back. He was 48, broad-shouldered, but beginning to stoop from years of physical work. His beard, once dark, was now threaded with gray, trimmed short, but never quite neat. Deep lines framed his mouth and eyes, carved there by cold winters, hard labor, and a life that had taught him to expect problems more than kindness. He had learned that lesson after his divorce. After his teenage son moved to Denver with his mother and stopped answering calls. After Jack realized that keeping his head down was easier than asking why things had fallen apart. He bent to pull a toolbox from the van when he saw it, a smear of dark red against the snow. Jack straightened slowly, eyes narrowing. Blood, fresh enough that it hadn't frozen solid yet. He followed it with his gaze, noticing uneven paw prints alongside shoe marks from the night before. "Damn," he muttered. He crouched, touching the edge of the stain with a gloved finger, then looked toward the drainage opening a few yards away. The old storm drain sat low to the ground, its metal cover slightly misaligned, snow packed around the edges. Then he heard it. A sound so faint he thought at first it was the wind pushing through the pipes. A whimper. Jack held his breath. There it was again, thin, trembling, desperate. He walked closer, boots crunching softly. He knelt beside the drain, brushing snow away from the gap. The sound grew clearer, sharper now, tugging at something in his chest he hadn't used in a long time. He lifted the grate just enough to peer inside. Darkness, moist air rising from below, and movement. 5 small shapes huddled together in the narrow channel beneath the street. Puppies. Golden retriever puppies, their fur darker than an adult's, soaked and clumped together. They were tiny, no more than 2 weeks old, eyes barely open, bodies shaking uncontrollably. "Oh, hell," Jack whispered. He looked around instinctively, expecting to see the mother nearby. He scanned the street, the yards, the line of trees at the edge of town. Nothing but snow and silence. A door opened across the street. Sarah Whitman stepped out, wrapped in a long coat, cigarette already lit between her fingers. In daylight, she looked older than she had the night before. Her face was drawn, lips thin, eyes rimmed with tired redness. She paused when she saw Jack kneeling by the drain. "What are you doing?" she called, suspicion sharpening her voice. Jack stood, brushing snow from his knees. "There are puppies down here," he said. Sarah frowned, walking closer, boots leaving deep impressions in the snow. She leaned forward, peering into the opening, then straightened abruptly. "That dog again," she said. "I told you, Jack, it's just a stray. Probably had them down there. Happens all the time." "They're freezing," Jack replied. She shrugged, taking a drag from her cigarette. "That's nature." Jack felt irritation flare, but beneath it was something else, unease. He glanced back at the drain. The puppy's cries were weaker now, like threads about to snap. "Where's the mother?" he asked. Sarah's jaw tightened. "Took off. Good riddance. She was bleeding all over the street." The words landed hard. Jack imagined the dog limping through the night, injured, chased. He imagined her leaving only because she had no choice. A man walked past them, bundled in a heavy jacket, head down. He glanced briefly at the drain and shook his head. "City'll deal with it," he muttered. "Don't get involved." Jack watched him go. For years, he had lived exactly like that, passing by, not asking, not stepping in. He told himself it was practicality, survival. But standing there, listening to the faint cries beneath his feet, it felt like cowardice wearing a sensible coat. He crouched again, ignoring Sarah's sharp intake of breath. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Seeing if they're alive," Jack said. One of the puppies lifted its head weakly, muzzle trembling, and let out a thin sound that barely reached the surface. Its eyes were cloudy blue, unfocused, searching. Jack swallowed hard. "They won't make it down there," he said quietly. Sarah looked away first. "Not your problem," she said, though her voice lacked conviction now. "You start saving every stray, you'll never stop." Jack didn't answer. He eased the grate open wider, careful not to drop it. Cold air rushed into the space, and the puppies cried louder for a moment, then quieted as if exhausted by the effort. Jack reached in, his large hands suddenly clumsy with fear. He didn't lift them yet. He hesitated, glancing again toward the street, the woods beyond. If the mother came back, but there was only silence. Snow began to fall again, light at first, then steadier. Jack made a decision. He shrugged out of his heavy jacket and draped it over the opening, shielding the puppies from the wind. Then he stood, already pulling his phone from his pocket. Sarah watched him, arms crossed tightly against her chest. "You're really doing this," she said. Jack met her eyes. "Someone has to," he replied. And as the puppies huddled together beneath the street, their cries fading into weak breaths, Jack Miller stood in the cold, no longer able to pretend he hadn't heard them. Night came back colder than before. The temperature had dropped sharply after sunset, the kind of cold that did not merely chill the skin but pressed inward, settling into joints and breath. The town looked smaller under the snow, quieter, as if it were holding its own secrets beneath the white. Jack Miller returned just before 10. He parked his van a block away this time, leaving the engine off. The streetlight near the storm drain buzzed faintly, struggling against the darkness. Jack carried only a flashlight and a pry bar, his boots sinking into fresh snow as he walked. He had tried to eat dinner. He had failed. The sound from that morning, the thin, broken whimper beneath the street, had followed him all day, threading through his thoughts while he worked, tightening every time he imagined the cold closing in. He knelt beside the drain and brushed away the snow with his glove. The grate was still loose. Jack hesitated before touching it, as if he feared what he might find, or not find, beneath. Then he levered it open just enough to aim the flashlight downward. The beam cut into darkness. 5 shapes stirred. Relief hit him first, sharp and almost painful. They were still there. The puppies lay pressed together, their small bodies forming a fragile knot of warmth. Their fur was soaked and dark, clinging to their skin. Their sides rose and fell shallowly, breaths uneven and strained. One of them lifted its head weakly, then let it fall again. Jack exhaled slowly. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." He swept the light along the tunnel walls and immediately saw what he had missed earlier: water. A thin stream leaked steadily from a crack in the pipe above, pattering onto the concrete floor and spreading in a shallow pool beneath the puppies. It wasn't rushing, not yet, but the surface glistened, creeping closer by inches. Cold water. Winter water. Jack frowned, calculating without meaning to. Time. Temperature. How long small bodies could survive like this? Not long. He shifted his weight, bracing one hand against the edge of the drain, leaning closer. The puppies stirred again at the movement, soft sounds escaping them, less cries now, more breath than voice. "Your mother should be here," Jack murmured, his words fogging the air. He straightened and turned the flashlight outward, scanning the street. Nothing. He widened his search, walking slowly, deliberately, letting the beam sweep across fences, trash bins, the edges of yards. Snow muffled everything, erased most tracks, but not all. Near the curb, half hidden beneath new snowfall, he spotted them. Paw prints, uneven. One set dragged slightly, the pattern broken and irregular. Jack followed them, step by step, heart tightening as they led away from the drain, across the street, and toward the tree line at the edge of town. He stopped where the pavement ended. Beyond that lay the forest, dark, dense, and heavy with snow. Pine branches sagged under the weight, shadows layering over shadows. The tracks disappeared beneath untouched white, swallowed whole. Jack stood there for a long moment. He pictured the dog as he had glimpsed her only briefly the night before, pale fur matted with blood and grime, body thin, leg injured badly enough to slow her. He imagined her standing where Jack now stood, torn between returning and running. "She came back," he said softly to the trees. "Didn't you?" The wind shifted, stirring snow from the branches. It brushed Jack's face like a cold hand. Sarah Whitman watched him from across the street. She had followed at a distance, telling herself she was only checking, only curious. In the dim light, she looked smaller than she had during the day. Her coat hung loosely from narrow shoulders, and her hair brown, straight, cut unevenly at the ends, fell around her face, catching flakes of snow. She didn't step closer right away. "What did you find?" she asked, voice tight. Jack turned slowly. "They're alive," he said. "Barely." Sarah crossed the street then, boots crunching loudly in the quiet. She peered into the drain, one hand gripping her coat sleeve like a brace. "Oh," she breathed. For a moment, the hardness in her face slipped. She looked at the puppies not as a nuisance, not as a problem, but as what they were. Small, helpless. "I thought—" She stopped, shook her head. "I thought she just dropped them there." Jack followed her gaze back toward the forest. "She didn't," he said. "She brought them here. Hid them," Sarah swallowed. "Then why isn't she here now?" The question settled between them, heavy and unanswered. Jack looked again at the dark tree line. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Either she ran because she had to," he paused, "or she couldn't make it back." Sarah hugged her arms tighter around herself, her breath quickening. "You think she's dead?" Jack didn't answer right away. He thought of the blood in the snow, the dragging prints, the way the tracks ended abruptly at the forest's edge. "I think she chose them," he said finally, "whatever it cost her." The water beneath the puppies crept another inch closer. Jack knelt again, staring down at the 5 fragile lives beneath the street, then looked back toward the woods where the night seemed to press inward, watching. Somewhere out there, a wounded golden retriever mother might still be moving through the snow. Or she might already be still. And Jack Miller stood frozen between those two possibilities, unable to tell which truth he was supposed to believe. The storm arrived faster than expected. By late afternoon, the sky over the town had darkened into a low, unbroken sheet of gray. Snow began to fall, not in gentle flakes, but in thick, driven curtains, pushed sideways by a growing wind. The air sharpened, cutting through layers, through intention, through hesitation. Jack Miller loaded the puppies into a cardboard box lined with towels and an old blanket. His hands moved carefully, almost clumsily, as if he were afraid that a single wrong motion might shatter them. The puppies were quiet now. Two quiet small bodies pressed together, breathing shallow, uneven breaths. He closed the lid halfway, leaving room for air. "I'll keep them warm," he said aloud, more promise than plan. Sarah Whitman stood near the curb, arms folded tightly across her chest. In the daylight, the lines on her face were clearer fine creases at the corners of her eyes, a mouth shaped by years of restraint. She was tall but narrow, her coat hanging loosely from her shoulders, brown hair pulled back again in a rushed knot. She looked like someone used to standing her ground, even when unsure. "You can't just take them," she said. Jack paused, glancing up. "I can't leave them there." She hesitated. "People are already talking." "People always talk," Jack replied. As if summoned by the words, Tom Hargreave crossed the street toward them. Tom was in his early 50s, broad and thick through the shoulders, with a red face shaped by cold weather and long habits. His beard was heavy and untrimmed, more gray than brown now. He worked nights at the grain depot and had once lost a dog to a bite incident years back, a story he never told without anger hardening his voice. "That dog's dangerous," Tom said, stopping a few feet away. "My niece saw her bleeding, snapping. You take those pups, she'll come back, and next time it won't be trash she's after." Jack straightened slowly. "She's injured," Jack said, "and she hid them to keep them safe." Tom snorted. "You don't know that." Sarah looked between them, jaw tight. "What if animal control gets involved?" she asked. Jack met her eyes. "Then they get involved. But tonight, they'd freeze." The wind gusted harder, rattling loose signs and lifting powdery snow from the ground. Tom shook his head. "I'm calling it in," he said, "before someone gets hurt." He turned and walked away, boots heavy, deliberate. Sarah watched him go, then looked back at the box. "You really think the mother will come looking?" she asked quietly. Jack answered without hesitation. "Yes." He lifted the box and carried it toward his van. At the edge of town, the golden retriever mother stumbled. Her body trembled violently now, not just from cold, but from exhaustion that had soaked deep into muscle and bone. Her injured leg dragged behind her, numb and swollen, each step a decision she had to make again and again. Snow clung to her fur, weighing it down, matting it into icy clumps. Her breath came in short, ragged pulls, fogging the air before her muzzle. She stopped beneath a stand of pines, sides heaving, and looked back. The town glowed faintly in the distance, lights blurred by falling snow. Somewhere beneath those streets, her puppies waited. She tried to take another step and failed, collapsing into the snow with a soft, broken sound. For a moment, she lay still, eyes half-lidded, the world narrowing to white and cold. Then a sound cut through the storm. A distant engine. Voices. Flashlights. Her ears twitched. Fear surged, sharp and familiar, forcing her back to her feet. She turned away from the trees and staggered deeper into the forest, driven by instinct older than pain. She did not run toward her puppies. She ran away from them. Back in town, Jack drove carefully, windshield wipers fighting the snow. The box shifted slightly on the passenger seat with each turn, He kept one hand near it, steadying it unconsciously. At a stop sign, headlights appeared behind him. Another truck, then another. He recognized Tom's vehicle among them. His stomach tightened. By the time Jack pulled into his driveway, 2 neighbors had followed. Doors slammed. Voices rose above the wind. "You can't keep wild animals in your house," someone shouted. Jack turned, box in his arms, standing tall despite the cold biting into his face. "They're not wild," he said. "They're babies." Sarah arrived moments later, breathless, snow clinging to her coat. She took in the scene, Jack, the box, the growing knot of people. "This isn't right," Tom said. "If the mother's alive, she needs to be caught. Tonight." Jack looked at the sky, at the storm thickening by the minute. "If you go out there now," he said slowly, "you won't find her." Tom's eyes narrowed. "And if we do?" Jack didn't answer. In the forest, the golden retriever mother pressed herself against a fallen log, snow piling along her spine. Her body shook violently now, muscles failing her in waves. She lifted her head once more, turning it toward the distant lights of the town. Her tail stirred weakly. Then the wind roared louder, swallowing everything else, as the storm closed in and the night erased all clear paths forward for her and for the people who believed they were hunting a threat instead of a mother. The storm did not rage all at once. It tightened. Wind pressed against the house in long, grinding breaths, rattling the windows, filling the air with a constant, restless howl. Snow struck the siding sideways, piling faster than it could slide away. The porch light flickered, its glow swallowed almost immediately by white. Jack Miller had not slept. He sat on the edge of the couch, boots still on, jacket draped over a chair, listening to the soft, uneven sounds coming from the cardboard box near the heater. The puppies whimpered in short bursts now, their voices weak but present. He counted their breaths without meaning to, as if keeping watch might keep them alive. Then he heard it. A dull thud against the front steps. Not loud, not sharp, just heavy. Jack froze. Another sound followed. Something between a breath and a whine, barely audible beneath the wind. His chest tightened instantly. He was on his feet before he realized he had moved. When he opened the door, the cold slammed into him. The golden retriever lay curled against the porch railing, half buried in drifting snow. She was smaller than Jack remembered, shockingly so. Her body was thin to the point of fragility, ribs clearly outlined beneath soaked, tangled fur. Her once golden coat was now a dull, dirty cream, matted with ice along her spine and legs. She had made it this far on instinct alone. Her head lifted weakly at the sound of the door. One ear twitched. Her eyes, clouded with pain and exhaustion, locked onto Jack's face. She did not growl. She did not bare her teeth. Her tail moved once, faintly, brushing snow. Then her body sagged, collapsing fully onto the porch boards. "Oh no," Jack whispered, dropping to his knees. Up close, he could see the damage. The hind leg was badly swollen, fur darkened with frozen blood. Her breathing came in shallow, rapid pulls, each one an effort. The pads of her paws were cracked and bleeding, raw from ice and miles of forced movement. "She came back," Jack said softly. "You came back." Behind him, the wind carried other sounds. Footsteps, voices, flashlights cutting through the storm. Jack turned just as Tom Hargreave emerged from the white, followed by two other townspeople. Tom looked larger in the storm, shoulders squared beneath his heavy coat, rope looped over one arm. His beard was crusted with snow, eyes sharp with the certainty of someone who believed he was doing the right thing. "There she is," Tom said. "I told you she'd come." Sarah Whitman stood several steps behind them, her face pale beneath the porch light. Snow clung to her hair and coat. Her arms were wrapped around herself, posture tense, conflicted. She looked from the collapsed dog to Jack, then back again. "Jack," she said carefully. The golden retriever stirred at the sound of voices. Her body tensed weakly. She tried to rise and failed, letting out a low, broken sound. Not a threat, not a warning, but something closer to pleading. Jack stood and stepped forward, placing himself between her and the others. "She's not dangerous," he said, his voice steady despite the cold creeping into his bones. "She's dying." Tom lifted the rope slightly. "She's injured and unpredictable. That makes her dangerous." "She followed me here," Jack replied. "She didn't attack anyone. She came for her puppies." One of the men behind Tom shifted uneasily. "You sure about that?" Jack didn't look away from Tom. "I've never been more sure of anything." The wind surged, blowing snow across the porch in thick waves. The golden mother dragged herself a few inches closer to the door, nails scraping weakly against wood. Her nose lifted, catching a scent carried from inside. Milk, warmth, life. Her breathing quickened, her body trembling violently now. Sarah stepped forward before she realized she had decided to. "Look at her," she said, her voice breaking through the wind. "She's barely holding together." Tom hesitated. For the first time, doubt flickered across his face. He had expected snapping jaws, rage. Fear turned outward. Instead, he saw a mother who had spent everything she had left. "If animal control comes," he said, less certain now, "they'll put her down." The words landed heavily in the storm. Jack glanced back at the dog. She met his eyes again, and in them he saw no calculation, no wildness, only urgency and fading strength. "No," Jack said, "they won't." He opened the door wider. Warm air spilled onto the porch, curling into the snow. The golden mother let out a faint sound and tried again to rise. Jack knelt beside her, sliding one arm carefully beneath her chest, the other supporting her injured leg. She whimpered softly, but did not resist. Inside, the puppies stirred. Their cries, thin but unmistakable, reached the porch. The golden mother froze. Her head lifted sharply, eyes wide now, breath catching, as if the sound itself had pulled her back from the edge. Her tail moved again, stronger this time, and she tried desperately to push forward. Sarah covered her mouth with one hand. "Oh my God," she whispered. "They're hers." The truth settled over the porch like fresh snow. Quiet, undeniable. Tom lowered the rope. No one spoke as Jack carried the mother inside, step by careful step, the storm howling behind them, fear finally losing its grip as something far older and stronger took its place. The house was too quiet for a storm like that. Snow hammered the walls and roof, but inside, the sound faded into a low, distant roar. The heater hummed. The air smelled of wet fur, old wood, and something faintly metallic from blood thawing on the floor. Jack Miller stood near the center of the living room, shoulders squared, as if bracing himself against more than just the cold. He had placed the puppies on the blanket near the heater, the cardboard box pushed aside. 5 small bodies lay tangled together, their fur already beginning to dry. They moved weakly, noses twitching, tiny sounds slipping from their mouths like fragile threads holding them to life. The golden retriever mother lay just inside the doorway. Jack had eased her down carefully, supporting her injured leg, whispering nonsense the way people did when words failed. Now she trembled uncontrollably, ribs shuddering with each breath. Her eyes never left the puppies. Sarah Whitman stood a few feet away, arms hanging uselessly at her sides. In the warm light, her face looked different, less sharp, less defended. Her brown hair had come loose again, strands sticking to her pale cheeks. She looked like a woman who had spent years building walls and suddenly realized she was standing on the wrong side of them. Tom Hargreave remained near the door, snow melting off his coat and pooling at his boots. The rope still hung from his hand, but loosely now, forgotten. Up close, the hard lines of his face softened by something unfamiliar, uncertainty. The old anger he carried, shaped by loss and fear, had nowhere to stand anymore. Jack knelt and gently guided the mother forward. "It's okay," he murmured. "They're here." The golden mother hesitated, muscles quivering as if her body no longer trusted the ground. Then she dragged herself forward, inch by painful inch. Her nose reached the blanket first. She inhaled sharply, a sound that caught in her chest like a sob. She licked the nearest puppy. Once, twice. The puppy stirred, letting out a thin cry. The mother froze, then moved faster, licking each puppy in turn, her tail thumping weakly against the floor. She nudged them together, curling her body around them as best she could, shielding them with what little strength she had left. The room went silent. No one spoke. Even the storm seemed to pull back, as if listening. Sarah covered her mouth, tears spilling freely now. "She never left them," she whispered. Jack didn't respond. He watched the mother dog the way one watched something sacred, afraid to interrupt, afraid to look away. Tom cleared his throat roughly. "I was wrong," he said, the words scraping out of him. I thought I was protecting people." Jack finally looked up at him. "Fear does that," he said quietly. "Makes us forget what we're seeing." Tom nodded once, staring at the floor. His hands shook slightly as he set the rope down. "My brother's dog bit my niece," he said. "Years ago. I guess I never stopped seeing that." Sarah turned toward him, eyes red but steady. "This isn't that dog," she said, "and this isn't that moment." A new voice broke the fragile stillness. "I heard there was trouble." Emily Carter stood in the doorway, stamping snow from her boots. She was in her early 30s, a volunteer veterinary technician who lived 2 streets over. Her dark hair was braided tightly down her back, practical and controlled. Her expression shifted instantly when she saw the scene-trained calm giving way to quiet urgency. "What happened?" she asked. Jack gestured toward the mother and pups. "She collapsed on my porch. The puppies were trapped under the street." Emily knelt beside the golden mother without hesitation, her movements confident and gentle. She checked the dog's gums, her breathing, the injured leg. "She's severely hypothermic," Emily said. "Dehydrated. That leg's infected, but it's treatable." Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "And the puppies?" Sarah asked. "They're weak," Emily replied, "but alive, and that's everything." The mother dog shifted slightly, pulling the puppies closer as Emily worked. She did not growl. She did not pull away. She watched Emily with tired eyes, trusting because she had no strength left for anything else. Emily glanced up at Jack. She won't survive the night without warmth and fluids, but if we stabilize her here, I can get her to the clinic at first light. Tom nodded quickly. I'll drive. Roads are bad, but I've got chains. No one argued. Jack sat back on his heels, exhaustion finally catching him. He looked at the mother dog again, at the way her body curved protectively around her puppies, despite pain, despite fear, despite everything that had been taken from her. This town owes her, Sarah said softly. Jack shook his head. We don't owe her, he replied. We just finally saw her. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the house, something had shifted. Fear no longer filled the space. Judgment had nowhere left to stand. Only a mother, her children, and the quiet understanding that some truths did not need defending. They only needed to be witnessed. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with thunder or light from the sky. Sometimes they arrive quietly, on 4 trembling legs, in the middle of a storm, asking only to be seen. This story is not just about a mother dog. It is about the moments God places before us every day, small, fragile chances to choose compassion instead of fear, mercy instead of judgment. In a world that often moves too fast and looks away too easily, love still finds a way to survive when someone decides not to turn their back. If this story touched your heart, let it remind you of this. Kindness is never wasted, and when we protect the vulnerable, we often discover that we are the ones being saved. Please share this story with someone who needs hope today. Comment below if you believe miracles still happen in quiet ways. And subscribe to the channel so more stories of compassion can reach hearts that are still waiting to believe again. May God bless you, protect your loved ones, and guide your steps, especially on the cold nights when kindness matters most.